We can do together. I'm a big advocate for collaboration, cooperatives, participation. Margaret Wheatley, who's an American systems thinker, she says whatever the problem, community is the solution. So we appreciate the natural assets, some of the social aspects, the neighbourliness, our place. George Monbiot, who some of you might know, is a Guardian journalist, but he's got a new book called Out of the Wreckage. His first book really set the tone of we are facing disaster and catastrophe, and the second book, Out of the Wreckage, tried to show pathways and ways forward. And at the heart of that, a lot of the time, was place-based activities, things that we do together, the coming together. And he said it's through restoring community, renewing civic life and claiming our place in the world, that we build a society in which our extraordinary nature and altruism, empathy and deep connection is realised. So there's many reasons why strengthening our sense of community, strengthening that social capital can actually help us face the challenges we're facing, but also bring down our environmental impact. So I just wanted to highlight that we need to change our thinking in some ways. We are in a society that's bombarded with advertisements that sort of animate extrinsic values, values of status and celebrity and individualism. And we need to move to a society that values cooperation, solidarity, empathy, and these intrinsic values much more. And Bernard Shaw says that progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Our minds, through our enculturation and through our education, are very individualistic. We need to move from ego-system thinking to ecosystem thinking. We need to move from individuals to seeing the sense and the benefit and health of the whole is good for us as individuals. We need to move from the me to the we. And I think this is the big transition that we need to engage in now, if we're going to meet the challenges that we are facing. This is Horace Plunkett. Some of you might know Horace Plunkett and George Russell 120 years ago went round this country, which was in crisis, and worked with local people, saying if we came together, we could set up a mart, we could come together as farmers and set up a creamery, we could share resources, and we could thrive in this place. And I think what we need now is a renaissance of a cooperative approach, a collaborative approach. And we are seeing that now, and I want to give you some examples of that in the context of where we are in climate breakdown. I think we should stop saying climate change. It's climate breakdown. We have 10 years to avert what David Attenborough was talking about at Davos and in Poland last year, that if we keep going on the path we are on, that by the end of the century, this planet will be uninhabitable for our species. So we're facing an extinction moment, and we have still a short window to change that. And I have been given so much hope in the last 2 months, seeing Greta Thunberg and the young people coming out on strike. And that gives me hope, because basically politicians and a lot of us weren't thinking. And even if we're aware, what do we do? So there's something happening that is waking us up. My worry is that we wake up and we don't know what pathway forward. Where do we go with this? What do we actually do? I'm fed up. People say, oh yeah, I'm very sustainable, I'm green, I recycle. That's great, but we've got a lot more to do. Or I've changed all my light bulbs, there's a lot more to do. And if we are going to do what we need to do, we need to do it together. And in some ways, in the face of climate change, we have to build a resilience. Now, we understand the word resilience from an individual point of view. It's our bounce back ability. The quicker we bounce back from shock or adversity or bad news, that's how resilient we are. Now, we need to see that idea of resilience as communities. However, with community resilience, we can't bounce back to the crisis or the shock that propelled us into the state we're in. Sorry, I thought it was on another slide. We need to take that opportunity of a crisis to break through into a new way of doing things, and that's at the heart of community resilience. This picture is taken about a year ago. We'll all remember of it. It snowed a little for a couple of days and the country closed down. This was our supermarket shelves. So this shows how vulnerable we are to long supply chains of our food coming from halfway across the world, our energy coming from halfway across the world, and us potentially at the end of a pipe or a long supply chain, very vulnerable. So vulnerability is the flip side of resilience. We need to strengthen our resilience. How do we feed ourselves, house ourselves, power ourselves, and in a way that's in solidarity with communities in other places that are really suffering. So I'm not going to talk much more about climate change, but it's bad and it's worse than that. It's really bad. So how do we maintain active hope? How do we engage? So I'm going to tell you a little bit of our story from Clough-Jordan Eco-Village, but I'm not here to give that story. I want to show some examples, things we're doing in Clough-Jordan Eco-Village that could be replicated in any community. And I'm going to look at food, energy, mobility, housing, and work. If we got those right, we would be on a good footing, I think. So this is Clough-Jordan Eco-Village, and we set it up in Dublin, where the original members we were part of the Dublin Food Co-op. And we realised how important the sustainability issue was. This is in 1999. And we said, well, what would be the best thing to try and accelerate this society to sustainability? Well, obviously a place where you can see these things in action: renewable energy, green building, permaculture, eco-design, organics, all developed in their own right, but in a living community where you could go and visit it and go home with some ideas for your own place. Didn't happen unless you went to Wales or somewhere in Europe. So it was a very ambitious project. I'm not going to go too much into it, but we are now in a little neighbourhood of 67 acres in an existing beautiful village called Clough-Jordan. And really what we're trying to do is model this transition to a resilient and low carbon society. We're told that we have to reduce our carbon number, but we could do that with the technologies and the inequalities that we currently have. We need to build a resilience and build justice and fairness as we move into a more sustainable system. And John O'Donoghue, I love this quote. John O'Donoghue said that the hunger to belong, which is really at the heart of what we're trying to do, a renaissance in a private place, a sense of belonging, a sense of rootedness. He said that if we're cut off from others, we atrophy, we turn in on ourselves. And so that sense of belonging is a fundamental need of being human. And I think it's somewhere that Ireland has been so good at community. And maybe in the last few decades, a lot of places with the Celtic Tiger, and exactly what you're saying about sprawling developments, is really undermining that sense of strong social bonds, mutual aid, and neighbourliness. So really, what we're doing in sustainable communities isn't anything new. It's what we've had, but it's not a return to what we had with the same biases and some of the same values. It's seeing some of the new ideas and new approaches and be able to blend them with indigenous and older traditional ways of doing things. We're also at the Eco-Village, I think, prototyping new behaviour or organisational changes that can help change the way that we work and the way that we make decisions and the way we work together. I hate coming into a room and seeing tables, chairs at the top and the top table, and that way that we do meetings where a number of experts speak and everyone else listens. We need to move away from and get into dialogue and engagement, and people can participate. And so we've been exploring new ways of hosting meetings, new ways of making decisions that I think is much healthier when you engage in a project. And this can help us be more resilient and more sustainable. This is our map. I don't want to go too much, but you can see this is Clough-Jordan Main Street. It's a small village, I don't know, 850 people. Duncan, what's the numbers now?
About 500 in the village itself.
So it's expanded by about 200 people in the last 10 years though. And this is our estate. We've got planning permission for 130 homes. We managed to get 55 up before the downturn, which is really we've suffered from, but we're still here. I'll tell you a bit more about housing. We've got our community woodlands, a community-owned farm, which I'm going to talk a bit more because it's one of the examples I want to show. We've got research gardens, our own enterprise centre, our own energy system. We've got a lot of things. I'm going to focus on 5. Now, it's no utopia. It is, I often say, the longest and most expensive self-development course I've ever taken, because you learn so much about yourself engaging with others. And we have to do everything in our estate. Look after the sewage, look after the energy, clean the place up. It's not like the council do it. So there's more responsibility on our shoulders. And it's tough. It is tough. But it's fantastic as well. This is Michael D. Higgins opening our new amphitheatre. We've got a 300-seater amphitheatre. You can see our woodlands in the back. And he said that the vision of sustainable living is clearly being put into practice, but it brings to mind this old Irish saying that the great achievements come through cooperation. So just highlighting that again, that yes, we need to reduce our environmental impact, build social capital, but we do that together, we do that in collaboration. So I've got 5 little stories of how we could actually think differently around providing some of our essential needs. Now the first one, we all eat 3 times a day. Food is so essential. We're now learning about how important food is, our nutrition of our food. We're learning that we need to reduce our meat intake, have more plant-based food. But also food is a fantastic convivial experience if it's done right. This is a street feast. I'm sure some of you have done street feasts that happen across the country. This time, end of May, I think. Well, you just do a big potluck meal. You bring the tables out and you invite people to bring some food, and we share food. So this act of conviviality in our food is fantastic. We're also seeing with GIY the health benefits and the empowerment of growing some of our own food. And we've got allotments, research gardens, edible landscapes around our houses. We've got a number of ways we can engage in food production, but we also have Ireland's largest community-supported agriculture project. Now we've got about 7, and I think there's about 2 or 3 are actually in North Dublin, quite local to you. But ours, community-supported agriculture, really is a change in relationship to our food producers, and I think could hold a key to ensuring our farmers have a good access to market and our community have food security. So really it's a system that puts the community and the food producer or the farmer together. If you went to France or Italy, there'd be thousands of them. We've got 7. And ours is probably the biggest. We have 75 subscribers. We pay €16 a week. We get 2 deliveries to our Main Street distribution, and we can take as much as we need. We send a little email that said, there's not too much broccoli, there's loads of onions, and that sort of helps us select how much we take. So it's a sort of based on trust. There's no money exchanged. The money goes into the farm's bank account, either monthly, 6 monthly, or annually. And it means that we employ 2 farmers at a higher rate than they would get if they were farming. We can put all the inputs in, and the community support our volunteer system, our education program, so members, community members can engage in the process. Now what's fantastic about this is our farmers grow food and take it to there. They don't have to negotiate with Lidl or Tesco for a good price. They don't even have to stand at a farmer's market after a busy week trying to sell their produce. They farm and send it straight to our distribution. So it's given access to a market, and any community could do this. And even we were based in Dublin, I was saying we could do this in Ranelagh. If we had a strong, cohesive community, 50, 60 people, we could make a relationship with a farmer in the outskirts of town. So the idea of community-supported agriculture has many benefits. It can build social capital, and I'd just like to take the idea a little bit further. This is Joe Fitzmaurice. You might recognise his brand. It's Ryan Bakehouse and Bread School. He used to be Blazing Salad. He's one of the Blazing Salad family. He's one of now the most, he does sourdough bread. He's a quite radical baker. Sometimes he's like a dough anarchist, not just a baker. He is trying to show, he's moved his family and his bakery to Clough-Jordan. He's trying to show how a small bakery can be viable in a village environment. How businesses don't have to grow, expand, employ, and export with all the stresses that come with that. But how can a business be viable and remain steady without having this growth? So he's managed to do that by diversifying. He does about 500 loaves a week. He's diversified into 2 courses a month, which are so popular. People come from all over Ireland and the UK for real bread courses. But he has a bread club. Similar to the CSA, I subscribe directly to the baker's bank account, and I get 2 beautiful sourdough, wood-fired sourdough bread delivered to my house. Now for Joe the baker, before he even starts baking on Monday morning, he knows he's sold 100 loaves. That money's in the bank, he's got that cash flow secure. So this idea of just changing the relationship with our producers, this is like shop local at a different level, where we're actually ensuring that our local producers, farmers, craftspeople even, we could extend this to, have a stable market. Now we have a bread club, a milk club, a meat club, a Whole Foods Buyers Club. So this idea of clubbing together for rural or urban revitalisation, I think, is at the heart of a new approach to sustainability. The story or pattern that we're going to see through the next 4 stories are similar. So for energy, we need to move to renewables as quickly as possible. We need to get off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. However, we could do this more effectively together. This is our solar panels. This is our district heating system. We have a large community-owned renewable energy district heating system for eventually 130 homes. This is much more efficient. If you can imagine, if you've got 130 homes with different heating systems, with different fuel sources, the chaos of trucks going out. So there's an efficiency. We're using biomass mostly. So it's renewable. Our biomass comes as a waste product from a sawmill that makes fence posts. So this idea of community-owned energy assets is important. All around Europe, communities can invest or have shares in their wind farms or their solar parks. This is Ireland, the south of Ireland, because the north has a few more. This is the south of Ireland's only community-owned wind turbine in Kildare, about 15 miles from Clough-Jordan. It took 10 years to get planning permission and grid connect. We still don't have a feed-in tariff for solar or wind to allow us as communities to accelerate the idea of community power. Kildare now is looking at community generation and distribution, so that you could actually sign up to local energy. Maybe in the future you could sign up to Kildare Energy and only buying in renewable energy generated in Kildare. We're on the brink of a rooftop revolution where we can be producers as well as consumers of energy. This is a street in Belfast with the Northern Ireland Community Energy, and so the UK and most of Europe can avail of being paid for generating energy. That means our churches, our community centres could be making an income when the sun is out, and we can actually generate solar energy quite quickly or efficiently, even in our latitude. So we're seeing the potential of a rooftop revolution that's just not unlocked because we don't have the political support for it yet, or there's problems with the grid, we're told. But we're missing out on something that is similar to what we're seeing with food, community ownership of the means of generation of our energy. Housing as well. Housing, we know we can make our houses much more airtight, more insulated, reduce our costs, have a nice, warm, dry, comfortable home. This is one of the homes in Clough-Jordan Eco Village, nice big windows on the south-facing side, really well insulated, almost passive, this one. So we know this with housing. But could we, and access to housing is done in 2 ways in this country. Rent at horrendous rates now with unsecured tenure, or if you're lucky enough to get a mortgage, grip of death, if you're lucky enough, you can get that and be locked into that for the rest of your life. Across Europe, there's so many other ways to secure housing. And I've been researching co-housing. Co-housing, again, a cooperative approach. You still have your individual home. It may be smaller because everything idles in your home. You could bring into a community building. So the project I'm looking at in Clough-Jordan is 12 units in a little pocket neighbourhood. Instead of having 12 washing machines with 1 little laundry, instead of 12 guest bedrooms with 3 guest bedrooms, we can rent those out if no one's booked them and make a little income for the neighbourhood. You could have a microgrid, you could have a carpool. There's so many other things we could do in a neighbourhood, a pocket neighbourhood, where we have shared the ownership through a cooperative process. The burden of debt on our individual shoulders is crippling. And for young people, even professionals to professionals with a decent income so hard to get on. So could we rethink the way that we do housing? Obviously we could do smaller homes if we take out what's idling. I visited about 10 across Europe, and I started looking at it from an affordability point of view. And after I visited 10, I realised it's actually a well-being point of view. The way that we do our estates now, and everyone with their own driveway and your car driving in, there's no communication really between the units, everything's fenced off. Basically, our estates now are where we sleep and watch television. We educate our kids, we work, we entertain ourselves somewhere else. And so could we make our neighbourhoods places that we live, work, bring our kids up? And that's one of the things we're looking at in the village. This is a little co-housing unit in Findhorn, and this is a seniors housing unit in Holland that I visited. It had about 40 units with a nice little garden in the middle, and then shared spaces and kitchens and living rooms. But they all had their own individual space. This isn't about all living in the same big house sharing. This is just a different way of potentially owning or thinking about our homes, not as the individual again, but as the neighbourhood. Mobility as well. We need to design our cities, our towns, our villages so that we can avail of walking and cycling. We need stronger public transport links. That's definite. We could do that. We also know that we're phasing out the internal combustion engine. As Vincent said, more and more people are getting electric vehicles. That's fantastic. But could we go further? Well, even in Jordan, we've got now 2 or 3 informal car clubs where maybe 12 families are sharing 3 cars. And car clubs are springing up everywhere because, again, it's an idling asset. It costs a lot of money to own, maintain, tax, insure this big lump of metal which we might leave outside the house for half the day. And so could we think about collaborating, cooperating in securing our access to the car? And things like GoCar now are emerging in the cities where you have an account, you've got an app on your phone, you need the use of a car from anything up to 15 minutes for the day, you put it in where you are, your phone opens the car, the nearest car, you drive away, you leave it at a designated parking spot, and at the end of the month you get your bill for your car usage. That to me seems smarter, maybe even for your second car if you can do it, but what it's signifying is that we need access to the service and not the burden of ownership of the service. And this is an example, I suppose, of the emerging so-called sharing economy or collaborative economy, which is really taken off with the millennials, where they realise, I don't need to own this stuff, I just need access to its usage. A lot of the sharing economy is actually quite extractive. Airbnb is seen as the poster child of the sharing economy, but really what it's doing is a shareholder company that's extracting wealth from us sharing our spare rooms and our spare units and causing huge problems. So that aspect of the sharing economy isn't what I'm interested in. I'm interested in an open, cooperative approach to the sharing economy where, say, a taxi platform isn't Uber extracting the wealth from us using each other's cars, but is owned by the taxi drivers or the users and the drivers of that. And these are emerging all over the world now, open or platform cooperatives. I'm going to finish just in jobs because I think this is where we are going to see massive changes over the next decade. We can't even imagine what artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are going to do. Blue-collar jobs were automated decades ago. Now we're about to see white-collar jobs being automated, managerial, legal. All of this will be done much better and more effective by computers. So what do? Well, we need to innovate socially. We need transformative social innovation around some of these ideas that I've explained, where it helps us come together, it builds social capital, helps us reduce our impact. This is where I work in Kildare Village, the Recreate Centre. It's a social innovation and enterprise hub where we do lots of meetings, conversations, dialogues, national dialogues. Last week we had 35 Friends of the Earth activists from all over Europe working on the different aspects. But the things I want to highlight are co-working. So you're seeing this in the cities now. With good broadband, we could work almost anywhere for a lot of the jobs. And co-working gives us the opportunity to, rather than rent your own office, to have a hot desk environment that you could use for a few hours a week or for the full week or whatever your subscription is. So this is, I think, interesting for rural or small towns and villages to actually have these places that we can do work in a different way. The advantages of co-working, if you're a sole trader or have your own little business, you might be in your living room or your kitchen doing your work, you're isolated. This allows you to work with other people. A lot of the time in co-working, they'll look for synergies between different enterprises and projects to maximise their impact. And we've got in our We Create Centre in Claude Jordan a Fab Lab. Now, it sounds a bit fantastical, a bit like Star Trek. Fab Lab is a set of machines, computer-controlled machines, where we can make virtually anything. So we are especially interested in sustainability, so we can take blueprints for, well, what we've done recently is beehives, composters, wormeries. These are designs and blueprints that we can take in digitally, put into the machine, and send it to the milling machine or the laser cutter or the router or the 3D printer and manufacture the parts for that. And we're exploring how we use that, not just for making and prototyping, but repairing. Imagine these glasses, they're expensive glasses. You know, the leg breaks, they just throw them away and get new ones. Or I could actually take it to the Fab Lab, scan the leg in the machine, send it to the 3D printer and print a new leg for my glasses. That's a pretty simple explanation, but when you're looking at machine parts or parts and things that you can't get, that to be able to replicate that or make that in a Fab Lab like that. And what's more important, I think, if we can move away from shipping stuff all across the world at huge expense, both to the planet and the environment, and be able to ship the recipes and the blueprints digitally, and then be able to make things in our local community, it's going to change fundamentally, I think, how we think about stuff. And when we add that to the collaborative economy, where we're changing our approach to how we own stuff, and we're thinking about the circular economy, where everything's kept in closed loops, I think we might have some hope of changing what we need to do to face the challenges that we face. If we are to adopt the challenges of today, to surf these waves of change, we'll need to nurture a much greater sense of collaboration, participation, and engagement. We in our local areas, in our local places, but we need more change makers, placemakers, social entrepreneurs. We need more people active in our tiny towns groups, in our political parties, getting elected into positions where we can actually make some change, but also anywhere with our families, with our own streets, in our neighbourhoods. We need to step up and engage and participate. The time is short and we've got a lot of work to do. Let's start.